Welcome to Season 3 of To Lose a Veil. I'm your host, Leslie. And again, I have my girls backing me up. That's Stephanie, Brianda, Jean, and Bonnie. This season, we expanded on previous topics with different guests. It was a pleasure being in the conversation and connecting with them. And we just want to let you know that we were so very grateful for every guest and every listener for diving in with us. How are you, Lancelot? We're going to welcome you to our podcast. And first, we'd like to just start off by asking you to tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here, to be present. A little bit about me. I met Bonnie probably around 2008 or so. So we've known each other a while through Landmark, and so I've done a lot of personal development work through there, which really has allowed me to communicate and really free myself up through my ability to communicate. For work, I am a financial advisor. And I love what I do. I love working with my clients and helping them to, achieve their financial goals. And overall, I just love working with and being around people. I'm Guyanese by nationality, so from time to time you'll hear my accent just show itself. And yeah, that's a little bit not sure how much you want to know, but I think for me it's what's important to know about me is I'm a very easygoing human being. I love having fun. I love music. Just always, for the most part, being in a relaxed state. So that's a little bit about me.
That's great. It would be nice if we could all learn how to be in a relaxed state most of the time. So yeah, we just want to really, really thank you for coming to answer some of these questions that we've been pondering as we take this journey into the divine feminine and look at all the different places where it is and really understand where it is in this culture. And because if it's not visible in this culture, is there something that we could learn as a culture by really tuning our hearts into that aspect of humanity? So, who taught you about God, and what exactly did they teach you about God?
I would have to say, like many other things in life, I just learned through experience.
So, as you were growing up as a child, what were you taught about God?
Growing up, I've always heard that God is in the sky, or God is it's God is this mysterious man in the sky, and I think the genesis of that was through my parents, through my grandparents, going to church and things like that. So kind of that's where it started. Mm-hmm. And it's never something that I clutched to, meaning that even though I've heard it time and time again, it's never something that resonated. It's never something that made sense. Mm-hmm. It's never something that I was able to accept.
Okay.
On a very just spiritual level.
Right.
That was sort of the beginning of the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
However, over time, becoming an adult and becoming to just seek information, I've learned to and just come to accept that I am God, and I am part of the divine, and I am part of the universe, rather than being sort of disconnected from and in some ways at the mercy of the man in the sky.
Okay. Yeah. So as you have evolved, have you let go? And what are your current views pertaining to God?
So I would have to say that the way I learned about God was through my family.
Mm-hmm.
So going to church from an early age. My grandmother, my grandfather, they actually had a church. My grandfather was a pastor, and from an early age, I learned that God was this man in the sky. God was always looking over us, and usually whenever we prayed, we had to get on our knees and give reverence to God. Again, the man in the sky. At night, before meals, praying and praying to God. But before, one of the things I remember is before we went to bed, we would pray. But when we got up in the morning, we would pray. Usually, in praying, we would get on our knees and close our eyes, and this ritual, right? And so that was the conversation of God growing up, and a big part of it is Christmas time. It's well, were you good or were you bad? And if you're good, then you'll be bestowed with gifts, and if you're bad, then perhaps not as many gifts, or maybe not any gifts. But I think the conversation of God was always this looking up, this greater than thou figure that was in the sky, and somehow I wasn't necessarily connected to him, but I knew that whenever I reference God, I know that I'm talking to this bigger person in the sky that somehow just oversaw everything, which I always thought was quite a task for God.
What about that have you let go of? What are your current views on God?
My current views on God. Well, I no longer refer to God as the man in the sky. I think now I've taken a position that God is just an energy rather than a man or a woman overseeing overseeing all my actions and always looking at me when I'm doing whatever it is that I'm doing, which I always thought was an interesting job for this individual. My current view on God is a very fluid concept, God. And so rather than thinking of God as a particular individual, it's more of a universal energy.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm inclusive of that energy. I have influence over that energy rather than being at the mercy of or not having any form of connection to. And so the best example that I like to give is the ocean and the wave, right? God is the ocean, and I'm just one of the waves in that ocean. I'm part of the universal energy that is God, and that's been over the years. That's come to be my understanding, my own understanding of God, rather than what's been given to me or the indoctrination.
Wow, beautiful, beautiful. Yeah. I've always thought about the ocean also. And I would come to express that when God had a wave get tossed onto a beach and the spray would go out, that I was a piece of the spray. Mm. And then to explain a certain amount of abandonment issues, when the wave went back and this little spark of spray, was stuck on a tree, and I looked out and I saw my being, everything I knew, going back into the water. Wow, just imagine this spray perhaps feeling abandoned by everything it knew. So I love that. I love that. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think one of the things to add to what you just said, right, mm-hmm. is I always notice myself and just how my energy shifts whenever I approach a body of water. Mm-hmm. One time I recall I was going up to Rochester. I was on a bus and I had a window seat on the bus. Anytime we passed on the highway a body of water, I was like a child. My face was glued to the to the window, and I just found myself looking out and just connecting to the water and just being very present of the energy that it brought.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And even now when it rains, I love it when it rains in the spring or the summertime. That way I can just walk in the rain.
Yeah.
Because of just what water represents to me, and just the enlivenment that comes from just being in and around water.
Yeah.
What does water represent to you?
I think for me, water represents the life force. One of the ways I think of it is a lot of the times when I'm bogged down in thought, right? I go take a shower, and I'll stand in the shower for however 8-10 minutes. But while I'm there, my thoughts just flow.
Mm-hmm.
I'm at ease, and I'm just able to think. I'm just able to be present and be rejuvenated and just get lost in that moment. For me, water represents just this pure life force, just this connectedness to the universe. That's what it represents to me. I love water.
Mm.
Yeah. I do that too. Jean knows we go down by the water, and sometimes it's just to sit so that whatever needs to be washed out can be carried out with you. And the other thing about water, our bodies are almost 75% water. Why wouldn't we connect to it? So that's amazing. Yeah.
You brought up life force,
Mm.
and that's something that we've talked about in the past. Well, for me, I see life force as, like you said, that flow state energy. It's what keeps you moving, I guess. It's what keeps us going. It's just that running essence in all of us. And I'm curious to know what how do you see God in connection to life force? How do you view those two things? I imagine that you think that they're related, but are they one and the same? Like, what is the connection between God and life force for you?
So I live alone, and when I'm in my apartment, sometimes I'll have moments where I slam the cupboard door, the door to the cupboard, inadvertently, and I would apologize to the door.
Mm.
Or I might have a similar experience, and I apologize to whatever that thing is. If I slam the fridge door, if I slam a car door, or what have you. Part of that is, for me, everything is related. Everything is connected. There's just a certain level of care that I extend to just life, whether it be my clothes, when I do my laundry, or whenever I'm cooking, or everything is energy. And there's a way that I relate to just life, my interactions with people, because it's all a life force. And essentially what I give, the way I show up and what I give really sets the tone for just my experience. And so I'm always, the way I relate to life and the life force is I have how I show up and what I give determines in part my experience of life. And so that would be sort of how I would articulate that. There's just a certain reverence that I give to life that just has me experience life in a particular way.
That brought up something for me. I have often looked at Native American movies and things, so like when they would kill an animal, they would thank the animal for giving up its life for them to be able to sustain themselves. So it may sound a little ridiculous, but I kind of do that at my house too. When I use things, sometimes those things kind of wear out. And then I thank that thing for, being of service to me. And then, I discard it. So I can identify with that.
Yeah, I love the ancient, the Native American reference, because I loved their relationship to nature,
Yeah.
Me too.
right? There's an interdependent relationship, and I just like referencing that. I read this book years ago, and in the book, there's this carpenter, let's say, and he would go to the forest and he would chop down trees, but he would go and ask the tree. He'd have a conversation with the tree. Hey, which one of you would like to come with me today? And he would sit there and he would listen, and if none of them responded in the affirmative, he would go back without a tree. And I thought that was, to me, that meant a lot, because it really just furthered my understanding of nature, right? And the fact that we are all connected, whether or not we choose to acknowledge that or not, was obviously up to us individually. But for me, I love having that relationship with myself in relation to the universe.
That's really cool. That example is just that person is living and working intuitively, right?
Yeah.
Completely intuitively, which is the ideal way for any of us to, lead our lives every day. So, I don't know. I love to hear instances like that. Well, first, I want to speak on what Jean said. I do the same thing. I name some of my appliances, like, so I have I have a washer named Gray, and when I use Gray, I'm like, Gray. My old washer was named Bessie, and Bessie, when I had to retire Bessie, I thanked her. I was like, had a lot of loads, had to wash it, been through ups and downs, So because going back to what you were saying about everything being connected, and everything has come from a living source,
Exactly.
The divine elements are all alive.
Yeah.
And so everything around us has come from an element, ourselves included. We all came from the elements. So, to appreciate that and acknowledge that, I think it's very important. So going back to just everything being connected, it brings us into a new, it's kind of a segue into another topic, which is sex. Because I feel that's something else that we've talked a lot about in our discussions. Specifically because we like to explore the link between sex and the spirit world, sex and God, and just how, the interplay. So do you think that sex is related to God? And if so, in what way and how does it present itself? Is the act of having intercourse a holy act?
Totally. Definitely. I think everything about sex is related to God, given that the ultimate outcome of that act is life. One of the things that I appreciate about sex is just our ability to connect as man and woman, our ability to take a sacred position in terms of engaging in the sexual act, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's all related. It all comes back. It's all connected to God and that universal energy, that creative energy. And for me, it's, when you think of the pleasure that's derived from sex, when you think of the pleasure that's derived from sex, the outcome of sex, all those things, they're all related to God, to nature, to the higher self. I think it's all connected. And so, yeah, the answer is yes. For me, the answer is a resounding yes. Just like we're talking about just everything being connected. Sex it's kind of hard to not see that act as being part of God, part of this universal, this divine energy.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I agree, which I find is so interesting, though not surprising, how there's been a lot of conditioning in certain cultures and religions around it being something separate and, in many cases shameful, or something that's not pleasurable, the list goes on and on. So I think it's important. I feel like we all think it's important to bring more awareness to the fact that it's actually the complete opposite of, things that some of us have been taught, or many of us have been taught and socialized to think. In
terms of energies, I think we definitely want to shift the conversation around sex, simply because if you think something is bad, if you think something is wrong, if you think that it's shameful, then you're actually bringing that energy, you're bringing that heaviness to the act of sex, mm-hmm. right? Which now you're setting yourself up for a diminished experience.
Yes.
Right? And one that has you question yourself perhaps before, during, and after the experience. And I think just like with anything else, when I'm eating, I love cookies, right? And if I'm eating 19 cookies, I'm going to be present and I'm going to enjoy eating all 19 of those cookies. And then because I know tomorrow and maybe for the next week, I'm not going to have any cookies, right? But I think it would be absurd for me to be engaged in sex and to feel guilty, feel shameful, or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
And whether it's sex, whether it's a piece of food, whether it's anything else, it's really the same thing. What's the point in engaging in something if you're not going to fully be present in that experience?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I tell myself that all the time when I order fast food.
Fully present to eat this
I'm like,
stuff.
listen, if I'm about to get this burger, I am aligned with having this burger. It is going to be a delicious meal. I thank the cow. Like, I'm not going to feel guilty about it.
Yeah.
I 100% agree with that.
Yeah.
Because it's not the food, it's your relationship to the food.
Yeah, are you aligned with it or not?
It's not sex, it's your relationship. It's not work, it's your everything. It's our relationship. It's how we relate. It's not. Yeah, it's just that. So I look at my relationship to everything, even my relationship to my clothes. That determines how I feel when I put it on, right? So it's just going back to ensuring that there's a healthy relationship that exists, within whatever aspect we're talking about.
Yeah.
That reminds me of you, Bree, the clothes, because you got me into the habit of setting intention for clothing when I buy it or when somebody gifts it to me. She would do that, and I saw her do that one time when I gave her something. I was like, oh, I bought this and I never used it. I feel like you would like it. And she was just like, oh, I set my intentions for this. Thank you so much. And I was like, oh, setting intention for clothing. Yes.
Yeah.
I love that.
That intentionality matters.
Thank you so much for being here today. We've had an amazing conversation, and we just want to wrap everything up and tell you to come back and see us again. So we're out. Have a good week.